It is not about having the perfect longest streak. It is about increasing your average. In my experience, SR brings about positive changes over time. There are times where positive changes were not so apparent, but you eventually see it. For example, I used to be so into adult material. It did take some time to come back from that deficit in mindset on women. During that phase, all you experience is the frustration. Once you make it through, you totally see women differently, and your place in society is a lot more loving and constructive. Best to stick to it as a lifestyle and trust the process. I really enjoy this entry because it grounds this practice in a fundamental truth that we are talking here a lifestyle. I mean, even my words there to use it as a practice is not the truth. It is not a practice to not smoke cigarettes. It's not a practice to not drink to excess. It is fundamentally a lifestyle. It's about the relationship that you have with that thing. And sometimes I feel when I started to expose myself to the content and information on this journey, I was so condemning and very harsh on myself if ever I would relapse and whenever I would fail. And fundamentally, every day, every hour, every maybe even minute that you are detached from this particular vice, you're starting to reduce your karmic debt. So this is a wonderful excerpt for an individual that has gone 4 years on this particular journey. Perhaps not clean, like I've alluded to there in that particular introduction. There are some pretty interesting benefits that I'll discuss later on in the video, but for now, I really enjoy, not enjoy, it is fundamentally truth that we are speaking about here, that we need to ground our realization into this aspect that this is a lifestyle fundamentally first and not a practice. There can be a vanity metric ascribed to, how many days free from this particular vice. But again, I find counting days is more counting the days until you return back to something that has fundamentally changed you. You're outside of the prison now. You're on leave, right? And you're waiting to go back. And I also, what's really, a personal anecdote from me is what this gentleman was alluding to in this idea that your neurochemistry, your interfacing with women becomes substantially different because you have completely coerced and radicalized your mind into believing that what you see on the screens is, somehow has some continuity with real women. And that couldn't be any more further from the truth in what we're speaking about here. We're speaking about real feminine women no longer having the same sexual allure that they once had when we went through puberty. And, a lot of people laugh at me because I find some of these smaller, dainty, feminine characteristics so stimulating now because, I haven't watched adult material since 2019 or 18 now. And, dainty collarbones and feminine hands are the thing that really get me the most. And, delicate fingernails. These things become so much more stimulating because your neurochemistry is fundamentally reverting back to its natural state after blasting it with some of the highest stimulating material you could ever access online. So we'll continue here. While some of the things like working out more were self-initiated, the motivation to keep me improving my entire life experience came naturally and gradually. Settling for pleasure and comfort became so unfulfilling. Committing to SR is making the decision and commitment to live your best life. SR is one of the fundamental pieces to add to the positive trajectory of your life. Don't sweat the details of no wet dreams and few relapses. Embrace them as part of the overall positive process, unless maybe your number one goal is something more strict like brahmacharya or celibacy. Don't feel bad, enjoy it even. I used to be so harsh on myself equally as myself, and now you kind of have to laugh as they are simple steps on the path to liberation and illumination. Talking about fundamental pieces of the jigsaw that I would also add into the equation. I read something more recently that talked about the detachment process of actualizing the self, because SR is really a system to that overall goal, is realizing that you're the self and realizing you're not the mind and realizing your body, you're not your body, is fasting and meditation. Meditation being the greatest austerity one can practice, because it is complete disidentification with mind and body and re-identifying with the soul or the self, or the Atman or the Pneuma, whichever variation or parlance of the word that you want to use, that means that for you. And I believe that is so true. If you are an individual that is still having challenges on this particular journey and you're not leveraging things like fasting, things like meditation, then you're really trying to walk this path with both of your hands tied behind your back. They are really going to give you the necessary skills and insight in order for you to detach from the lustful reflex of the body, the sexual reflex of the body. Realize that this is a phenomenon that you can observe, but you don't have to identify with. And one book that is very, very resourceful in helping me, or that helped me realize that, is Letting Go. That's actually in my course, Sexual Energy Mastery. If you want to have a look at that, that's in the link below. But I'll give you the kind of cliff notes here, is the idea that you can have an emotion without being identified with an emotion. Like, you've all experienced the emotion of anger. Maybe your friend said something to you in school that you didn't really like, or somebody made a passing comment about your appearance that you feel very insecure about, and then you feel the reflex of anger start to take hold. Maybe your hands start to get sweaty, maybe you get anxiety, maybe you get a hot flush. And you can now make the decision and whether or not you begin to identify with the emotion of anger and let anger drive the vehicle of insert who you are, and lash out and hit that other person. Or you can simply observe the emotion of anger and realize that in time that anger dissipates in and of itself. The same thing with any reflex of lust or desire. If you notice yourself becoming to, or if you notice the state or energy of desire arise in you, it's very, very heavy, it's very, very dense, it's very, very muddy, and it can start to blur your inhibitions and make you do things with impulse instead of intention. Realize there you have a choice. You've come to a fork in the road, and you can either go left down the path that you've always gone down, that leaves you in a state of apathy, in depression, in lethargy, or you can go right, which is the path to liberation. It's just understanding that you can be an observer of this emotion, and in time, like anger, that thing will dissipate in and of itself. And that is coming home to the soul, because in that moment you realize that you are a separate entity from the mechanisms and fruit of the body. Like, emotions are fruit of the body, but you are not the fruit. You can pick the fruit, you can observe the fruit, and you go, oh, this is an interesting fruit. When I eat this fruit, it makes me feel sick, it makes me feel apathetic, it makes me feel shame. Maybe I won't pick this fruit. Maybe I can just watch the fruit and just go, interesting, curious, be a scientist. What emotions and physiological phenomenon are arising in your body when you're experiencing that emotion of desire? And then when you get really, really good at this, you begin to notice the continuity in the symptoms that happen. And then you can let them be, let them go. And the practices and exercises that strengthen that muscle are in fasting, are in meditation. Because what are you doing when you're fasting and you're meditating? Let's take fasting as an example. You notice the emotion, the physical phenomenon of hunger. You notice that your belly is very empty. Maybe you get some discomfort, maybe you get some pain, and then you get that urge to look in the fridge and break your fast. But if you can just sit and watch it and go, interesting. It's interesting how my body is giving me these signals right now. And I have the choice, I have the agency and the personal jurisdiction and self-government to be able to go, no, I don't think I will. I don't think I will begin to identify with the body. I think I will stay in the seat of my power in my consciousness and keep just in the seat of the witness, of the observer, because that's fundamentally the truth of your being. That's what you are. You have a mind, you have a body, but you are not these things. You can use these things like technology. You can use it like you use your phone, but you're not your phone. A lot of people are their phones now. They're attached to their phones. It might as well be sewn onto the, onto their fingers. But are you not the user? Are you not in control? That's the fundamental truth. This is about living your best life, not being perfect. There I said it, I've come to the point where I trust my experience more than any other doctrine, no matter how wise it sounds. Approaching life with an attitude of curiosity about life. So notice the language there is not too dissimilar from the ones that I'm trying to promote to you now. It's about being curious about what you're experiencing when you're having these particular emotions and just going, that's interesting. Look with fine discernment. Look at the details and just go, really interesting. Like a scientist. You are your study. That's what you are. And when you start to look at the details of the study, you begin to create more continuity in the outcomes of the experiment that you would fundamentally like to see. Oh, this variable here, let me tweak this variable, let me change this variable. I notice how I'm feeling desirous when this particular things happen in my life. It is about curiosity. It has opened up one of the best modes of living I have known so far. It has helped me overcome many self-limiting beliefs, let go of those that I have outgrown, and unlock new dimensions and experiences. Bruce Lee said, ultimately, all knowledge is about self-knowledge. Steve Jobs, one of the last wishes of the world was to self-realize. It's interesting that one of Steve Jobs' favorite books was Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And again, the cliff notes here is self-realization. It is realization of the soul. It's everything that I've elucidated in the front half of this particular video. Unless becoming a brahmacharya is your true goal, SR shouldn't be the end all be all. It's a system. I've often said that boys are associated with systems, but men are, I've said that wrong, sorry. Men are fundamentally, their concerns are the system, and boys are only focused on the goals. And that's a tweet that I use quite regularly, but now kind of looking retrospectively at that particular idea. If you're not getting what you want in life, you need to change your system. If SR is a system that is giving you utility and fundamentally where you want to be, I commend you. I think it's great. Keep using that system. But I do think over-reliance in ideology and groupthink is and dogma, that's what we're fundamentally talking about here. Dogma is limiting in such a way. It's not SR in and of itself, but it is what SR is holistically trying to teach you. And SR is holistically trying to teach you detachment. It's trying to teach you that you can experience lust without becoming lust, is that you can experience desire without becoming desire. It is looking at SR from, too close to the painting and stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. And that's what this individual is fundamentally realizing and has been the conduit to his particular success. Sexuality and women are your friends. Yes, another taboo here. I was under the opposite camp when I was starting SR. And I think it's completely appropriate to have that kind of mindset at first. In my experience, I eventually outgrew it. I've reached a point where life feels less complete and more self-denying because of not integrating loving relationships and sexuality into my life. I would compare this to being a triathlete, swimmer's mindset during swimming, biker's mindset during biking. Do you know what I mean? On this point, what's really, really interesting is that I did a video on my Patreon about my personal experiences when women attraction and magnetism become more abundant to the point where it can actually cause more problems than benefits. Because, I understand the game here. I understand that there are individuals out here who are going to use that particular benefit as a trope, as a catalyst for you to come and watch their particular videos. And, whilst I've done that in the past, it feels very, very cheap in some ways. I've come to realize more recently that when you first start to experience what this individual is talking about in terms of attraction and magnetism, is that you're not attracting the kind of women that are consistent with somebody that you want to bring in a loving relationship. It actually starts to bring people, women are people, women into your orbit that are fundamentally attracted to your energy and looking to siphon that off. And I've realized in my personal experience that it's typically more older women, because older women they have more life experience, and they're not, they understand attraction because they've kind of gone past their peak. Some of them, not all of them. They understand that attraction isn't fundamentally predicated on conscious attraction. So like the clothes you wear, if you've got chains, if you're 6 foot tall, if you've got a square jaw, etc., etc. Younger women are more obsessed with that kind of attraction because they've grown up in the Instagram age and the online dating age, but they're more sensitive towards energy in that respect. So you'll find when you start experience attraction, it's usually from individuals who are more conscientious, which are typically older women, but it can be younger women equally. But those kind of women are literally the manifestation of individuals who just want to take your energy. There are words for this. You can talk about succubi and things like that, and you'd be accurate in using that word to describe what I'm talking about here. But what I'm trying to convey with this point is that the other side of moving through that temptation, because it's just another form of lust that you're trading in for. Nature's kind of recognizing, this individual has they understand the game. They understand the game of giving their energy to virtual, poisonous pixels essentially. So we need to send more powerful agents as a means to bring him back into hell. And I mean hell on a emotional, energetic, and mental and psychic level. But once you start to push, it's another test. And if you fail that test, you start to go backwards where you started. But once you begin to push past that, you'll notice genuine serendipity when you attract individuals on your energetic wavelength. So north of courage, when you're using Dawkins's, I always say Dawkins's, David Hawkins's energy scale. So courage is where things start to change. You start to attract individuals into your life who, maybe aren't superficially attractive, or haven't, let's say, put all their eggs in that superficial category, but they're more energetically attractive. They've got great charisma. They'd make great wives. They're very, very loyal, trustful, and spiritual people. However, you'll notice that you have to go through this second phase of temptation and lust after you deal with the adult content, and it starts to appear in your physical environment. And if you're not careful, you can be misconstrued and misled by these particular individuals, thinking that this is the gift or the fruit of your work, where this is where actually the real work starts to happen. Still keep to that lifestyle. You may slip up. I slipped up on this. I remember attracting a woman who was actually married, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but I wish I had more restraint than I did, at that time. There was a lack of transparency and honesty from her part that, made things particularly difficult, and perhaps I was being a little bit naive in this case. But, you learn your lessons in this respect. I'm not going to sit here on my ivory tower and tell you that I managed to circumvent all of the devil's agents that he was throwing my way, because you kind of have to live. You kind of have to live through it. I mean, if you're watching this video, if you've made it this far, hopefully you can take on this message and fundamentally realize that it isn't all sunshine and rainbows after you quit the adult material. More powerful bosses come. They do come. And, if your conscientiousness and discernment isn't something that you're practicing, and if you're not privy to this kind of knowledge, then you'll make mistakes like I made mistakes. I'm fortunate in the fact that I managed to cut things off before it became too muddy, let's say, in that respect. Maybe I'll share the full video on my Patreon here, but I think I've conveyed what I wanted to here. So finally, it's not about power, it's about love. I love that so much. Preachy, I know it sounds very, very Disney, doesn't it? But through my many years and various experiences, I seem to come to the same conclusion as major religious thoughts, ancient civilizations, philosophers, artists, poets. Loving is a way of being in life. Yes, it does come with power, but as a side effect. Some even say that love is the most powerful or the true essence of existence. I have found that whether one looks at it from a form of intellectual or philosophical, spiritual, or even practical point of view, it makes sense to choose love. And he's quoted Rumi here. With life as short as half-taken breath, don't plant anything but love. Rumi. That's a great. I'm not massively into poetry, but Rumi has some phenomenal bars. Let's say. I'll talk about the benefits in just a moment, but just a little more on love here. I know again it sounds very, very Disney and it sounds very, very cliche, but that is the highest truth, is love. If you look at David Hawkins's scale, one of the easy ways to interpret it and make easy decisions in your life, and I was talking with a client about this very, very recently, a couple of weeks ago, is that if ever you're unsure about a decision, you need to ask yourself, are you moving from a place of fear and love? Those are the two dichotomies you really, to make things very, very simple, that you need know. Can you do things out of fear? And I'll be honest with you, in that previous example, I was doing things out of fear. I was doing things out of fear because you can second guess yourself when you start to become abstinent and start to detach yourself from the sexual reflex. One of the thoughts that I was having is that maybe I'll never be with another woman again. Maybe I'm not as attractive as I thought I was. Maybe I'll never have sex again. And that's very, very scary and fearful. It comes from a scarcity mindset. And when these opportunities come to you, like that opportunity came to me, you kind of grab onto it with both hands because you're fearful. You're like, oh, this is come on. I need to grab onto this as hard as I can and not let go to this experience because I might not get another experience like this. But instead, you need to move with love. And, fundamentally, what is the most loving action you can do in this particular moment? And I promise you, you will rarely go wrong in life. You will rarely go wrong with life if you're centered and if you make every single action coming from that abundant, overfilling cup of love. I know, again, it sounds very, very cliche. But benefits now. So some of the tangible benefits that this individual notes here, and some of these are interesting. I wouldn't say that some of these I've experienced all of them. I have experienced a newfound level of energy, confidence, and occasionally that can seep over into arrogance and pride, which, by the way, is a very quick fall back down into hell. Insane levels of motivation to improve life and create breakthroughs. And I believe this is an endocrine effect of your testosterone optimizing, your androgen is becoming more sensitive to the permeation of bioavailable testosterone, overcoming many other addictions and becoming done with unhealthy lifestyle choices, no matter how fun they are. So this is your cup overflowing into other areas. And you have to have a fair amount of intention and discernment to realize this, because sometimes you can put this energy into more nefarious and malicious and pernicious areas of your life. So you have to kind of go, right, I've got this abundance of resources. Let me invest it in something safe. Let me invest it in martial arts training, or maybe I start up another, productive habit like learning a musical instrument or a new language, or improving my social skills, or giving back to charity, whatever that may look like for you. Respect and aggression from men, still figuring out the latter bit. I'm confused why. In my personal experience, aggression comes because you begin to portray a manifestation of other men's inadequacies. So it's almost like if you walk into a room, you're kind of holding up a mirror to other men and you're going, you could have been like this, you could be charismatic, you could have people, want to be around you. You could have, that aura, but you're not. You're still drinking too much, you're apathetic, you're lazy. So naturally, when you do that, you're going to get an aggressive reaction. You'll get men who throw rocks at you. There's only a certain amount of men, in my experience, who are conscientious enough and humble enough to kind of go up to somebody that perhaps is outshining them in some ways and go, I want to be around this person. I want to learn. It's like going to the gym and seeing, a really, really big guy in the gym and you're going, Jesus Christ, look at this guy's arms, look at his shoulders, look at his chest. I wish I could be like that. A lot of guys would just go, oh, he's on roids, he's on gear, he's cheating, I hate this individual. But I actually find that those individuals who have particularly impressive physiques are the individuals who are the nicest, who are the most humble, and who are more than willing to help you. They'll go out of their way to help you. And that's my perspective on this particular phenomenon. Attraction from women, children, and animals. Yes, there is a selection of submission everywhere I go. Playing with their hair, looking down, shy, moving closer, orbiting, initiating conversations, even touching. Inner transformations. Ex-hardcore materialist. His work is in robotics. Now have spirituality as a major part of a lifestyle. Used to think of girls as a sex object and trophies. Now I see them as feminine beings that can connect with on a much deeper level. A childlike wonder, life becomes like a colorful, mild dose of LSD or psilocybin. Yeah, a lot of continuity with a lot of these things in my personal experience. I'm wondering if a lot of these are your personal experiences. Would love to hear down below. And I'll just end on this. If you want to have some more accountability in this aspect, I am looking for some individuals towards the latter end of the year to coach personally. And it could be anything, accountability on your business or to knock through some of those vices. I would love to sit down with you and see if we can connect and if we'd be a good fit working together. But these are not theories, gentlemen. These are facts. Speak soon.